Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Trashfuture, the podcast that you're listening to right now.
You're Riley Quinn.
It's the free one. Yeah, I'm Riley Quinn. I do the voice now.
Absolutely.
I'm doing a really good impression of Milo. Actually, I, Riley, am here. It's Milo who's not here.
Yes.
So mark that down in your Trashfuture jotters.
Yeah, and you're going to be doing the free one and the bonus one voices from now on. We're just writing in that opportunity. Also, crucially, do not believe anything that you, Riley, say later, perhaps in a more normal voice about how we're not going to do that.
Because that will be Milo doing an impression of me, Riley.
Exactly.
So don't trust anything
don't believe
that guy
his
says.
lies. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
That Milo, he's a trickster. You can't trust him.
Yeah,
he's a classic Riddler.
I have a memory condition, which causes me, I cannot backform my own accent. I can only use other people's accents. We may have met before, we may have never met, I don't know. My pockets are full of Polaroids of like different wines.
Just like you have a Polaroid of like a screen capture of the Google satellite image of the Niagara Escarpment.
Riley mementoed it's all.
Yeah, just this microclimate on it and Sharpie.
It's all pictures of him like skiing in Switzerland with people called like Toby. He's like, I guess we have met before.
It's your TF. A lot of things have transpired. One of which is us successfully cooing our special boy while he's away.
Yeah,
skiing.
we're denazifying the podcast.
Exactly. We've all painted a big Z on our microphones, and we've now taken to the studio for an anti-fascist operation.
And Riley can take up his rightful place in the Museum of Soviet. What is it, like the Museum of Soviet catastrophes or?
The victims of
communism museum in Canada.
Museum of Soviet catastrophes.
I don't know.
That sounds like a plausible Soviet museum, to be honest.
Yeah, it's like communism killed 100 trillion people, but mostly by accident as a joke.
Yeah, to be honest, that's probably like a huge proportion of deaths in the Soviet Union. Just girder falling on your head. Yeah, kind of shit. Like all the people in Moscow who die every year from icicles falling on them.
Yeah, we should do it like an anti-communist grift, but it is just the Museum of Soviet Catastrophes. I think that would be very profitable for us.
Well, actually, that was a whole thing about the victims of communism, wasn't it? That they were including like people who died in drunk driving accidents.
Yeah.
That was all like on the tally for victims of, like, they died in a communist country, therefore they are a victim of communism.
Stalin failed to conquer death.
If you're driving on a road with traffic lights, then you are a victim of communism.
That's true. I mean, after all, what's the most salient color in a traffic light? It's red.
That's right.
And, communism.
That's right. And it imposes rules on you that you didn't consent to, and it prevents your freedom of speech of going 70 miles an hour on a 30 mile an hour road.
The nanny states.
That's right.
Yeah.
In the form of traffic
was kind of like that American, what's his name? The libertarian guy from a while ago, Gary something, who
Gary Johnson?
Yeah, Gary Johnson, who like got taped basically saying that like cars shouldn't have airbags and like they shouldn't, and that he'd repeal legislation to remove seatbelts because
that's very funny because not having airbags isn't even libertarian. It's just like, I just want to die.
Drive. I've just realized something horrible though, which is now that we've cooed Riley in our anti-fascist operation, right?
Yeah.
All of the libs are gonna go, hey, is Riley Quinn hot now? They're just gonna become obsessed with him. There's gonna be a mural of Riley.
Wow, Riley is totally the Neville Longbottom of Trashfuture.
Oh.
Yeah.
He low-key had a glow up. I'm a bit Niagara-pilled now.
Going to Trafalgar Square and drinking some fancy wine to respect our special boy as he
in solidarity.
Riley could tell me about ski resorts until my calves cramped.
The most recent victim of communism by the woke British left.
That's right.
That's right. Anyway, Riley's volunteered for the Azov battalion, so you won't be hearing from him.
Yeah, well,
for a while.
He'll go try join the Azov battalion. He'll get rejected by the British border police because like they'll think he's a liability, and then he'll somehow find his way hosting like a wine show on GB News.
Oh, nice.
Riley accidentally going to Ukraine for the skiing.
Yeah.
It's like, I heard it was really good.
Skiing in the bog country.
I haven't been paying attention to the news. I heard it was really nice, so I just went to the border with my skis.
Accidentally skiing into Ukraine.
The reverse living daylights. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I promised some guys that I would shout out their strike fund, which I'm going to do at the start because otherwise I'll completely forget. So this is Trashfuture brackets in no particular order, in order which I remember it. So the Just Eat and Stuart riders / couriers are on strike, I think in Yorkshire up north. And their strike fund is running quite low. So they asked if we could shout them out and suggest a donation link. So there's a link to their like fundraiser which explains their strike and why they're doing it. And it's about basically paying conditions, your standard kind of stuff. So
everything is shit, and they want it to be a bit less shit, and we should support them.
That's right. And it's called being English. It's supposed to be shit. But if you want to be very non-English about it and support their strike, you can do, and there will be a link in the description. But if not, if you Google the Sheffield Just Eat strike, if for whatever reason you can't find the link, if you Google the Sheffield Just Eat and Stuart strike, I think you'll find their page.
This is crossed some wires in my brain, and I'm now very struck by the idea of a Just Eat rider painting a big Z on the side of the moped.
Pro-Russian Just Eat rider. Yeah. Taking all the pork fat out of your meal. Yeah. So what are we going to talk about? Do we want to start with Roman Abramovich, or do we want to start?
I want to talk
Brexit?
about football for a bit.
Okay.
Typical lad culture, typical dirtbag left shit.
See, I think that we should start with the unboxed stuff, just because I feel like we will be able to get through it in a shorter time, whereas the football stuff. Okay. Right. And also this feels because like we were promised a startup by the Special Boy, and we weren't given one. Because the Azov battalion were like, no, you can't have your phone. No,
but they took his laptop, his NATO branded laptop away.
That's right. That's right. They're like, what kind of podcaster uses show notes? Are you like gay or something?
Are you afraid of being spontaneous?
That's
Riley was like, I do a podcast, and the Azov guys were like, like Calm Down.
That's right.
Tell me, can you introduce me to Stavros?
I don't like Calm Down. It is a little work for me, but
I just Azov battalion guy who likes Come Town, except that one of the hosts is Jewish.
That's right. So he's now like doing a podcast in Ukraine, but he's like dealing with he's basically dealing with like the Azov battalion versions of us.
Yeah,
I feel like that's probably the most likely situation as to where he's gone. So, in lieu of a startup, we were talking a little bit privately about well, okay, why don't we start in this way, right? So we had,
in our secret Signal group chats, where we share OSINT.
We enjoyed the Dome chat, didn't we, lads? Like a
great deal.
Yeah, we thought that it was very fun.
Transformative episode.
And and like as we know, nostalgia is like a very big and popular thing, and something that like people get stuck into, and we can like, opine over that. But crucially, we have another
remember Pop-Up Pirate?
We have another example of nostalgia repackaged. So I guess the starting point is like, how many of y'all remember what the Brexit festival was?
The festival of Brexit, the inverse wooferendum. Yeah.
Yes.
We live in it. We live in it right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything is the festival.
Every day is the festival of Brexit.
Every time you walk into Tesco and there's no vegetables, that is the
you
festival
there, boy. What day is this? Why, sir, it's Brexmas Day.
Exactly.
That's right. Yes, so like the Brexit Festival was first sort of floated in the aftermath of the Brexit referendum because people were sort of like, kind of miserable. And the government, which was then run by Theresa May, was very much trying to convince people that like, no, Brexit's going to be this good and cool thing. and like now we've unlocked so much of our potential. But crucially, like it was in this context of like the Tory party trying to kind of basically going sicko mode and deciding to split people between like people who are pro-Brexit and anti-Brexit based on like what they say online and how they sort of posture. And then at the same time, the stuff leading to the 2019 referendum, in which any sort of idea that like maybe this Brexit thing that happened isn't just going to go away if you press a button, that was something that you weren't allowed to talk about. And it was very much the case of like you either reverse Brexit by pressing the button or you don't. So the Brexit Festival was really this kind of like somewhat optimistic attempt to convince people that like Britain could exist and crucially it could like still enjoy its stature, whatever that was.
Yeah. Fun Prime Minister Theresa May has invited you all to an office party.
That's right.
Yeah, eccentric aunt Theresa May.
That's right. That's when we all thought office parties were like, good and cool, right? 2000.
We could all run through a big field of simulated wheat together.
We couldn't do that just yet. At that time, we had to run through an actual field, but now, considering there's going to be like fucking wheat shortage and everything, we can run through a field.
Metaverse.
Yeah, we can run through a field of something. I don't really know what that something's going to be, but it'll definitely be something. Anyway, initially when we talked about the Brexit Festival, we were sort of expecting like kind of glib British shit, as you imagine. Like my envisioning of it was like Ed Sheeran might kind of do a kind of 5-minute video or something, kind of say.
Like a Royal Jubilee thing or something.
Yeah.
Ed Sheeran talking about the Brexit dividend for mental health.
That's right. But like
he's joined by Prince Harry.
Yeah.
You're going to check in on your chaps.
But like it'd be one of those like weird sort of like, British, you have like pop bands that were kind of last relevant in the 2000s. Like, I don't know, like Hearsay and Darius would show up probably.
Darius Dinesh, yes. Bring him back. Lamar. I want to see Lamar. If there's any justice in the world, we will see Lamar at the Brexit Festival.
4 of the 25 members of the Blazing Squad might like do a small show.
Ones who are like in jail.
When you think about it, the Blazing Squad, much like the Azov Battalion, started as like a squad-sized formation and just ballooned over time. Her Majesty's first loyal Blazing Squad regiment.
500 guys in the Blazing Squad. We've had to upgrade
I don't know why we gave the Blazing Squad all those anti-tank missiles, but I just hope they use them for something good.
The Blazing Squad, it used to just be led by like a lance corporal, but it's now ballooned to a size that we've had to put a lieutenant colonel in charge.
That's right. That's correct. I mean, look, I don't want to go into too much of the Blazing Squad stuff because I know like far more about the Blazing Squad than I would very much like to. However, what we seem to like, so the Brexit Festival has not died. It's just sort of been working in the background, and while we've sort of been distracted by like pronouns and war.
Like the coronavirus.
Yeah, and the novel coronavirus.
It's been studying the blade.
It has been studying the blade. And like what Riley mentioned when we were talking in the group chat is actually it doesn't look that bad, which is not to say that it looks good, but it doesn't, like, in relation to like big projects that Britain tries to do, and it always sort of ends up either kind of like breaking, falling apart, not happening at all, or crucially just being very, very cringe. This sort of seems to be like less cringy. So I'm going to give a bit of a history, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to read some of the projects at the Brexit Festival, which is called Unboxed: Creativity in the UK is Proposing.
Instantly slipped into the role of showrunner here.
That's right. Yeah. That is right. So it's being headed by Martin Green, CBE, who previously organised the opening ceremonies of, drumroll please, the London 2012 Olympics.
Oh, that thing we all remember when Britain was good for 5 minutes. Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Why does everyone claim to have organised the London 2012 Olympics opening ceremony?
It's like the lib version of being the second man on the balcony in the Iranian embassy siege. I was the second guy in the control room at the London 2012 opening ceremony. I was the
guy dressed as the Queen jumping out of the helicopter. Whereas actually the Queen jumping out of the helicopter was John McAleese.
I volunteered for a day for the London 2012 Olympics, doing like directions duty for visitors. So in many ways, I was also responsible for the success of that particular event.
Absolutely.
And even more ironically, it was actually the Queen who was in that gas mask, the second person on the balcony at the Iranian embassy.
That's right. Green was also involved in like making whole like the City of Culture and Arts in 2017, which like I vaguely remember.
A great success.
But yeah, I wonder how Hull's doing now.
Probably fine.
I have a brief anecdote about Libs organising the London 2012 Olympics, which I may have told on the podcast before, but I'm not sure that I have, which is that at my school speech day in like 2005, like whenever it was that we got the Olympics, I think it was 2005 when we won the bid.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Because it was immediately before the London bombing.
Yeah, it was. So it must have been 2005. Yeah.
Yeah. Keith Mills, who was one of the people in charge of the bid, came to our school speech day to be like the guest and give the speech. And it was just after we just got the logo had just been done.
Oh, those weird aliens! Yeah,
the one that looked like Lisa Simpson giving a blowjob.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the logo itself. The
Lisa Simpson blowjob. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, the Simpsons hentai logo.
Yeah,
and he opened his speech saying like, "Oh, I'm Keith Mills. I'm working on the London 2012 Olympics. Who here likes the London 2012 Olympics logo?" And no hands went up. And then there was this amazing, like, Partridge-esque pause, and they just went, "Well, I like it."
I mean, bringing up the mascots is also very funny because I remember Wenlock and Mandeville, those fucking horrors.
Oh, yeah.
Very keenly.
Yeah, deeply, like, sex horror kind of creation.
They're like a walking CCTV camera. They gave one of them a police helmet too at one point.
Yeah, I mean, they sort of it just reminds me of like.
And Alice was like, maybe I like him a bit.
Yeah, a tiny bit.
Punished like Mr. Blobbies. It's probably like the closest I could describe them. Anyway,
they're like Chernobyl blobbies.
That's right. Yeah, that is basically Chernobyl. That's it. Okay, yeah. So like this sort of been going on in the background. It's had like a kind of like £6 million budget as far as I'm aware. I'm sure. I'm just like reading the stuff that's like from the wiki page. It's obviously been like it kind of got some delays due to like COVID-19. So it's unclear like when this is happening, but like it's now been like it went from being Festival 2021 to Unbox Creativity in the UK 2022. So
why are we unboxed? Were we boxed in the EU?
Okay, so here's like part of like the marketing that's changed over the course of like the past year.
They're getting YouTubers to do
it. So the kind of like slogan is "Welcome to another side of Britain." So it's the idea that like, and I think you're right, Alice. Actually, it's like very much the implication is that the UK was boxed in by the EU, and it's like bloody red tape and bureaucracies and everything. And what the Brexit Festival will do, the Unbox Festival will do, is show that like outside the EU, Britain can sort of achieve whatever it wants, which like
a vibrant economy of fashion YouTubers.
Yeah, that's right.
The EU Working Time Directive was preventing me from doing all the dogging that I wanted. 40 hours a week isn't enough.
That's right. So there were like a bunch of people who like sent bids in, including like Jamie Oliver, the British Film Institute, the British Library, the Imperial War Museum, the Tate Galleries.
A real country, a pucker country.
The Imperial War Museum would be a slightly more honest kind of unboxing of Britain.
And there are now like a short list of like 30 projects. I won't go through all of them. I have put like the link in our show notes if you want to have a look at them, but I'm just going to like read a couple out.
Our show notes?
Notes? That's what I'm making notes.
Not show notes, sorry. In the little chat box that we have when you're in the box where we like type in slurs while we talk.
Okay.
Yeah, so in the slur box.
Let me just.
Yeah, I think that was in the previous recording.
Sorry,
so I don't think we have
I'll put it now. I'll put it in the slur box again. There you go.
Okay.
So
right, let me
I'm going to read a couple.
I'll
now.
Be Jamie, and I'll pull this up for myself.
That's right.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's
Unboxed 2022.
Yeah, so you've got like,
and their button for cookies is "I'm fine with this," which is how I feel about a lot of things.
So you've got projects like, for example, Dandelion, in which like 100,000 school children and young people will take part in the largest community.
Join 79,989 other curious minds.
You are our 1 millionth visitor to Britain.
I love the logo, the unbox, and then like the O is like has that kind of like hypnotic spiral thing, like those things you use to donate a penny to a charity at the supermarket.
The other thing about this is that it uses so much animation that the page actually lags quite badly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's like Homer's website in The Simpsons.
Yeah.
No, it's not, because I think I like Homer's website in The Simpsons. I think it's very fun and cool. Whereas like this is very like you've sent this to like a digital marketing agency.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
and they use the same colors and they've used the formats and all that stuff. And it's just like, yeah, I've seen this version of a website many times. So
Unboxed. Creativity in the UK is a once-in-a-lifetime celebration of creativity taking place across England, Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and online.
Being a marketing person in the UK must be absolutely grim, right? Because 99 times out of 100, you're making this website for like a variety of different clients, like Lockheed Martin or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the 100th time, you're getting like used as a kind of human puppet by apprentice contestants who want you to design a logo for whatever bullshit they're doing this week.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I've worked with like a few marketing like people in like various jobs before, and it's basically that, like, you know, they sort of kind of anticipate what the website design is going to be. You know, the color scheme is usually like the same or very similar.
Tour de Moon? Tour de Moon is a cosmic journey into the possibilities of tomorrow. Live shows, nightlife, digital experiences, and more. And then my favorite phrase, created in collaboration with the moon. It's like, yo, they got the moon?
You've got.
We need to attach the moon, otherwise they won't
Brexit
fund
X
it.
Moon.
That's right. You've also got like these other kind of, you know, you've got these other projects too. So there's one called like Our Place in Space, which is described as a 10-kilometer scale model sculpture, trail of the solar system, designed by the artist Oliver Jeffers, which can be visited physically or experienced in augmented reality. You've got, like, as I mentioned before, you've got like Dandelion, which is supposed to be like this kind of live immersive project for like planting, you know, flowers and wildlife and so on. There's like one called Galwad, which is Galwood brings together the Wales' boldest film and TV talent, creative technology, live performance, and yeah, so that's kind of like the very sort of like, you know, centric towards the regions.
Listen, I just have to say the moon one is the best, right? Because the website design, and I'm just gonna put this in the little slurs box here for your perusal.
Yeah.
What they're doing is something called moon convoys, where there will be a little.
Look at the website. Oh my god.
Hugo Drax.
I'm struggling.
Oh no!
I'm struggling. I'm struggling to explain this website in an audio medium.
Sorry. No, I take it back when I said the previous one was Homer's website.
This one is Homer's website,
complete with like rotating text.
Yeah.
Simply go to tourdemoon.com to see some spinning graphics.
This is incredible. This is like some Nathan Barley shit.
I like this because it sort of reminds me of like when you get your first kind of like Bebo or Pixo site and you can just do whatever you want with it and you make it as insane as possible. Like like in the background, is there like a figure of the moon screaming,
melting ice cream moons? Yes.
Fuck, this is so Alan's dictaphone. Like, parading through towns and cities of England, Moon Convoy synthesizes the whole of the Tour de Moon festival as it travels between Leicester, Newcastle, and Southampton. What? Why are those the three places?
Towns.
What the fuck is the Tour de Moon? The moon is everywhere.
That's like, okay, so that's an insane project that I didn't see when I was looking at this. And I'm sure Riley didn't see it either, but that is truly insane.
I'm gonna send Riley the Tour de Moon website 5 or 6 times.
Oh my god. If you wish to participate, email us at hello@tourdemoon.com with your CV and availability.
I would like to participate in the Tour de Moon to go look at the screaming ice cream moon.
Yeah, the moons look like they're in a lot of pain, to be honest with you.
It looks pretty, yeah. It's like a kind of, it's like a Porpentine version of like Disco Elysium, the design of this site. It's really...
There's a link here labeled Moon Hotline. Excuse me.
You've got one also called like Dream Machine, which is, and this is kind of like where I thought the dome stuff would sort of come in quite well, which is that like it was a Dream Machine is described as like an immersive journey into light, sound, and imagination, and just the idea of like the possibilities of like, you know, entering your mind and seeing what's going on there, which is something that I don't really want to do. But the reason why I kind of bring this up in terms of the dome stuff is because, like, unlike the kind of like glib, kind of corny celebrity stuff, I imagine much of like the British creative arts that gets funded usually results in. This reminds me much more of like the Millennium Dome. In terms of like the projects that like it's or like the exhibitions that it's showing, really just kind of this like it's trying to sort of like create this like incoherent and I think partly like unbelievable narrative, which is much more about like a country trying to express faith in itself, but doing so in like a way that feels very, very disorientating, or at least sort of like out of place.
It's so weird that this is a Tory initiative. I'm stuck on the moon thing because it's so
baffling.
fucking bodies and spaces as well.
I mean, bear in mind that also the Millennium Dome was a Tory initiative as well, which like Labour then just kind of like carried on to completion, right? So which is to say that like there is a future where potentially Keir Starmer will have to do the Tour de Moon.
I just love to be, because someone had to come up with this and this is like their baby, right? I'm just going to read you some more copy from this. Moon Hotline is composed of immersive digital experiences and Talk to the Moon. Talk to the Moon is an artificial intelligence powered invisible theatre experience about conversation and connection by T. Uglow and friends. In Talk to the Moon, Luna converses with festival goers and online visitors intimately as a mysterious mythological creature who not only wants to share more about themselves, but also wants to learn from humankind. It is a dialogue that explores normativity, belonging, and otherness.
It's partially sponsored by WeTransfer. The Tour de Moon is like
TF Day Ones, WeTransfer. Big up.
Yeah, there's this project as well. I'm not sure what like I think it's called Pollination, but like their kind of promo screen, which is just like a Pollination. That's it.
Where they're going to make everyone a big polycule.
That's right. But also crucially, this polycule looks a lot like Stratford Westfield, like the outside area of Stratford Westfield.
Oh no, the most cursed part of London.
Yeah, so it's also still like it's kind of still just bringing in the kind of cursed elements of like modern architecture and kind of like the kind of weird notions of public space and everything. But yeah, like again, it's
oh fuck, this is going to be at the fucking Edinburgh Festival.
Oh my
it's
god!
At the Assembly in Edinburgh from the 6th to the 14th of August.
So if you're there, come on down, check it out, meet the moon.
I mean, it's a big ask to go to the Edinburgh Festival and be one of the more annoying things there, but I think they're going to manage it.
So yeah, you've got like this kind of like series of projects, and like yeah, there's kind of this reminder. You know, there's just like a lot of these kind of harking back to the kind of ideas of what the dome should be, but like I don't know, it feels really weird now because I think partly because every time we saw it,
because we've all seen the Moon website and had our brains damaged by that.
Yes, partly because we've seen the Good Moon website, but also I guess partly because like you know when we talk about British infrastructure and just like kind of these types of like so-called ambitious projects, like when it comes to Britain, we sort of know how the story goes, right? Which is that, and there are only really two ways this goes down, right? One is that like it becomes so immortalized into like liberal consciousness that everything sort of becomes anchored to it, and like everyone sort of ends up in this kind of weird nostalgia cycle around this sort of theatrical performance.
Yeah, and then 10 years later, everybody's like, I actually did the PR for the Tour de Moon.
That's right. That is great. Or the second one is that like it ultimately ends in like complete disaster, like loads of money is wasted, but like crucially, it doesn't kind of achieve any of its sort of like philosophical objectives, and only to then like what these projects then kind of being brought up by I don't know, like fucking O2. Basically what I'm saying is that like Drake is going to do a concert on the Tour de Moon.
I hope so.
That's the most likely outcome of this.
Fundamentally in this country, right? You're either on the Moon website or the Moo website, unheard.com.
I mean, I thought this was going to be like the Festival of Britain, right? And the Festival of Britain was this sort of everybody's depressed as shit because everything is terrible. It's 1950s times. we're gonna do like a little hurrah to make everybody feel better about living in Britain.
Yeah, you can only eat corned beef.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Check out all the cool shit that we're gonna do.
Yeah,
we've paved the entire south bank of the River Thames with concrete, which is gonna look great forever.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, and I imagine, like, for most like British people, this is actually probably something that would be something that they would probably prefer. Like the whole like
at least you build something for fuck's sake.
The war bunker like escape room experience where you get to eat like corned beef out of a can and you get to kind of say slur words in public.
An electric car brings you an alternate reality Winston Churchill and convoy across the UK.
Yeah, and in the gift shop you can walk out with a gollywog and like a small jar of like quince jam or something. I don't know. Like
a cry laugh emoji keychain.
Yeah, and that's it. You can buy all
stress
those
ball.
things.
A cry laugh emoji stress ball is the most British fucking tulpa, like psychically powerful object I can imagine.
This also feels. I was gonna say, but this also feels really weird too because it almost like feels like something that's come out of like Liz Truss or like Matt Hancock's brain. And I feel like if Matt Hancock was around, we'd be hearing about this a lot more. And the idea of just being, okay, all these projects are trying to kind of be like future facing, right? So like you have some projects which are trying to highlight like, you know, the dangers of climate change, but also the idea that like, oh, in Brexit Britain, we can kind of like plant more things and we can kind of create more like green space and all that stuff. And then you have like I think like 3 different kinds of space projects. One being toward the moon, but I think there's like 2 others which are kind of about, you know, the broader solar system and like, you know, space transportation. There's one project which is about like, you know, future homes and like settlements and all that stuff, like, you know, how you build like, you know, different types of futuristic homes and so on. So like the theme of it is supposed to be like future facing, but what feels really weird, disorientating, and kind of like, you know, really super artificial about it, I guess, is just the idea of doing this at a time when like I'm not convinced anyone really believes that like this country has like a future that is even in remotely in any way optimistic.
Oh god, no. Absolutely.
Right? So like all these projects sort of just seem to be things that like have come out of, you know, like fucking management consultancies and like focus groups about what they think the future could be based on, like, again, also based on these sort of like very vague understandings of the past. And, you know, there's a reason why like there's so much like stuff that is drawn out of like the Great Exhibition and, you know, the Dome. It doesn't feel like it's kind of genuine. It just sort of feels like if you were to sort of think about the future in very abstract terms, this is what it might look like.
Yeah, and I feel like I would respect it more if it had this kind of like brash Johnsonite Toriness about it. Like if it was the kind of like a bit like the shit the Foreign Office has been doing, you know, like the Britain is great, you know, with all the fucking like your BAE systems or whatever.
I don't even think that Britain really does that. I think like so much of like British foreign I mean, most of it is like propaganda, right? And then like the thing that like the British Foreign Office like exports the most is like counter extremism surveillance equipment. So they're not even like they're not even like promoting. In fact, if anything, like what they've been doing to try to deter people from coming here is being like, no, this place sucks. It's shit. You don't want to come here.
And it's shit. It's terrible.
Yeah, you don't want to.
We actually employ the Foreign Office to talk Britain down to avoid asylum seekers coming here.
Yeah, that's right. That is right. That is
but what's really funny about this is that I think particularly in this incarnation of the Tory party where their whole thing is kind of like taking the piss out of like, you know, the woke and like the absurd kind of like they've gone from that kind of Cameronite sort of like Whiggish Toryism of like, you know, like, oh, actually like hug a hoodie, whatever. We're just like the, you know, fiscally responsible version of Labour almost type thing.
Yeah, that kind of like manic positivity.
Yeah. And they're now doing the like culture war shit. And yet when they actually have to come up with like a cultural product, they're so uncreative that they fall back on the same like bodies and spaces shit that like this could easily be a Labour Party project.
Yeah.
Like the extent to which everything that's written in it is complete like wishy-washy, like it's about connectivity between genres and cultures and ideas. Yeah. And like it's so funny that like the Tories who are constantly being like, oh, like woke bollocks are like they're kind of like this is what they come up with.
Yeah, I mean I can imagine like Keir Starmer like trying to kind of promote this video. I welcome them. but
I would encourage it to go further by sort of melting in horror in its own flesh. I've mooned Julia Fox.
Are we sure that there isn't some kind of a gas leak in like conservative central HQ that like allows them to think like this?
Yeah. The conservative HQ is just like midsummer.
Yeah.
The thing that Riley was suggesting to us last week was that like this seems like a competent project. It's not like a good project. It's not kind of like a kind of forward-thinking project. It's not one.
It's slick.
It is slick, and it's kind of and crucially like the reason why it's so slick and crucially why it's so kind of like something that looks like something that looks like a professional slideshow presentation that's become material is because you have like people who are basically professional events managers running it, and crucially no government minister like wanting to be involved because I guess like they're too busy doing other things. So like the Brexit Festival, when it was first sort of highlighted, was something that like Jacob Rees-Mogg, for example, was talking about a lot. And it was kind of like there was this thing where
You see, I hate this. I wish they'd given it to Jacob Rees-Mogg. I want to see like the Jacob Rees-Mogg sicko mode Brexit Festival.
We've built like a 19th century Victorian revival cathedral out of limestone in the middle of central London.
Yeah, like the venue is like a giant bowler hat. Yeah, like I want that.
Crucially, it's just like this is a project that will kind of be competent, but like broadly forgettable. I don't think that it like relates in the same way that like a 2012 Olympics sort of relates to, but like crucially I think what it might be, what I think the fact that if it is kind of perceived to be competent and something that like attracts kind of even minor interest, it will sort of be I think what it will be used as. So I think what's happening is you have like British politicians who have been very happy to sort of posture around the idea of being like pro-Brexit and optimistic about Brexit and everything, but like crucially they don't really care about it that much, and they're really not as invested as like they want it to appear to be. So like the Brexit Festival will be very good for them to kind of build up that brand of being like a pro-Brexit person, which crucially is like important like in British politics to be elected anyway, without having to like kind of commit to any sort of vision. Which is to say that I think that this is like a very good strategic tool for like Tories to have, but not one that they're necessarily like. But like at this point, I'm not one they necessarily either believe in or they care about.
Yeah, and it's as a result, you end up with nothing. Like you end up with stuff that is purely marketing, whether that's
exactly
the Tour de Moon or whatever else.
That's right.
I'm still fucking obsessed with the Tour de Moon, man.
It's the Tour de Moon because it's the creeping Islamization of Britain. It's a crescent moon.
That's right. Speaking of Islamization of Britain, should we talk about football?
Yeah, it proceeds apace because so the other thing that we've been doing is the Foreign and Commonwealth Office has been very busy with something that they like to call the Oligarch Task Force. And they
incredible. It's like the Wonder Twins, but they're all oligarchs.
Yeah, exactly. And so what they've been doing is they've been announcing in a big thread on Twitter with these incredible graphics, the
graphics are so good.
The work of the Oligarch Task Force, with each oligarch who they've like named, shamed, sanctioned.
They all look like a screen from fucking Rogue Traders,
Yes.
like where they've got some cowboy builder banged to rights, and it's like he did over Maureen for $9,000 for a conservatory that was never built, and then it'll be like a black and white picture of him with like 9,000 in like red over
it's
him,
like
and then like cowboy in a red
it's like
stamp.
projected on a brick wall for some reason.
Yeah.
And it's got like a grimy sort of black and white picture of Oleg Deripaska or whatever. And most notably, the most recent addition to this wall of shame is Roman Abramovich, Russian billionaire and owner of, amongst other things, Chelsea Football Club.
We're obsessed with Roman Abramovich. They keep going on about Roman Abramovich, even though Roman Abramovich is like the most real oligarch. Like, British people have just heard of him because he owns Chelsea, but other than that, he's of no relevance to the current situation whatsoever.
And yet, I mean, I'm not crying about like billionaires getting their assets seized.
No, he's a cunt. Fuck him.
Yeah.
But like, it's so funny that they're like, oh, Vladimir Putin's best mate, Roman Abramovich. It's like, do you ever wonder why Roman Abramovich never goes to Moscow ever? You ever think about that?
He did try and forestall this a bit by both asking Putin to like maybe not invade, which of course was not listened to, and putting Chelsea into a charitable trust in a sort of a like Mr. Burns' technical superior is this cat kind of move.
Yes.
This did not work either, and now because Roman Abramovich has been sanctioned, Chelsea Football Club itself, they can keep going, they can keep playing, they can keep paying their staff, but they can't sell any tickets, and all of their sponsors are dropping them. And we're rapidly approaching the point where we end up with like London FC playing in plain blue shirts.
Yes.
It's perfect. We're gonna do it. We're gonna nationalize Chelsea.
I mean, my favorite element of this is that all the Chelsea fans are furious.
Yes, I saw a guy saying it was collective punishment and like it was unfair to do Chelsea fans like this. And this you on this is the Chelsea fans who, in a moment of silence for Ukraine, chanted Roman Abramovich. It's like me sowing and me, of course, reaping. I mean, this is just fantastic as far as I'm concerned. There is very little as corrupt in England as football and the business of football.
100%.
And the fact that we've managed to like isolate this slice of corruption and just as a bit, just as a joke, totally destroy it is very, very funny to me.
This is a delicious little morsel.
I'm really excited for Chelsea to like just become a non-league team and have to like,
do the Rangers.
Yeah, and like, you know, have to kind of like compete with teams.
I was about to
like,
say, it's finally happening in England. One of your top flight teams is just having to claw its way back up after being totally destroyed financially.
They'll have to like do training wearing those like grotty bibs that like, you know, you get in PE lessons. They'll have to like
they're doing training. They're doing shirts versus skins.
That's right. Yeah, like the goalpost will just be two jumpers.
Yeah, they're playing on the council field behind a house that's being sold by Tommy Walsh. Football, you can watch.
Also, I was thinking about this today, which was like not long ago we did talk about buying a football team.
And now if you're listening, Chelsea, I look forward.
Roman Abramovich, how much do you want for it?
I look forward to the fact that that's the thing. No one can pay him for it because he's sanctioned. You can't trade with him at all. So it's just stuck in this kind of limbo.
So he's in this.
You can't sell it. They're gonna have to seize it.
Yeah.
Like the proceeds of crime, like a convertible taken off of a drug dealer.
So
incredible.
Yeah. So I guess one of the questions is like, number one, how long is it before Chelsea has to face off with Dartford FC? The second question is also like, what government minister is going to run Chelsea Football Club?
Third question: how will Arsenal find a way to lose to nationalise Chelsea?
Incredible. I fucking want Matt Hancock managing nationalised Chelsea.
Yes,
they should turn it into an academy.
Yes, give him a big sheepskin coat, put him on the touchline. Matt Hancock has been called out of retirement as the Minister for Managing
Chelsea. A mug of Bovril.
Yes.
He's still in his turtleneck.
A mug of hot Huel on the touchline.
Like, that's his like real comeback story, right? Like, you know, disgraced minister whose only crime was falling in love, finds himself having to like manage a football team of big egos and
only one man can put them back on top.
Yeah, that's right.
It's our boy. It's Matt Hancock.
Matt Hancock would love being called the gaffer.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And like the whole kind of story is the team learning to love Matt Hancock, and like the final scene of this like film is that they all like are doing parkour the day before like the finals of like
John Terry fucks Matt Hancock's girlfriend for
that's
a change.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Say what you will, he learned a lot about his body.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I was also thinking about was like, you know, last year obviously like one of the biggest kind of like British protests that took place was against the proposed Super League. And I think that also kind of like there were lots of conversations about like, oh, like, you know, football fans, you know, can be mobilized and they are kind of, you know, this kind of constituency. And I think that's super.
Yeah, they can be sent to Odessa.
That's right. Yeah,
part of the Millwall firm.
Yeah, well, look, you know, there have been stories of like some football fans like trying to go over to Ukraine to fight.
Oh, of course.
But
they're going to throw a plastic chair.
But I think for like lots of
folding up a newspaper and advancing on the VDV.
But I think like I think like the kind of like political constituency of like people who are broadly kind of in terms of electoral politics, like sort of fairly apathetic. Or like sort of understand stuff at a very sort of like base level, but like who really do mobilize by football. The idea of like not being, you know, their season tickets like not, you know, being way more expensive or not being able to sort of go to games or participate in culture, especially in so much of the country where like football really is the only accessible part of culture, right? So I wonder like whether like what this might result in.
Well, the lesson is clear. A revolution started by ultras in the same way as Egypt and like, fuck, dude, I don't know. Football ultras love to be in paramilitary units. That's one thing we've learned, both in Odessa, but like even going back to like the Balkan Wars when all of the fucking like Red Star Belgrade guys decided, we are now a commando unit. Let's do war crimes.
I mean, I only asked this because like someone pointed out on Twitter, I can't remember who, but someone pointed out that like. In 2019, one of like the things that Corbyn proposed was the idea that like fans could basically buy out their clubs, right? That like, you know,
sick Jeremy Corbyn makes football clubs use the Pro Evo names,
and this was like
off-brand,
and this was like something that wasn't really talked about much in the mainstream press, but it was like something
North
that was
London quartermasters.
It was
the cannons.
It was something that was like dismissed by like, you know, sports commentators as just being like, you know, in line with stuff like, you know, universalized broadband and everything. And what's very interesting now is that like a lot of them, beyond like, you know, people complaining about the British government and like, you know, placing sanctions on Abramovich and like, you know, destroy, like basically kind of on the verge of destroying this, you know, this Premier League football club. It's also the idea that, oh, actually, you know, when you think about Premier League football and how much corrupt money is in it and how much corrupt money is necessary for it to work, like sanctions should be placed on Arsenal and it should be placed on Manchester United and Manchester City and like
approximately
Newcastle,
every team,
right?
Yes.
Yeah, like, you know, so you know the only
just keep going all the way down until it's like Dartford and Dulwich Hamlet FC, and Dulwich are on thin fucking ice.
That's right.
Dulwich Hamlet FC with all their dodgy money.
That's right.
Coming
or like
from,
the curveball
driftwood picture frame stores.
Or like the curveball where like Millwall
exactly.
somehow seem to be like the kind of cleanest team when it comes to
financially, not physically.
Yeah. Oh, and it's like a lot of that money was cashing in.
Yeah, football is absolutely rotten. It's rotten in all sorts of different ways, and it's very funny to enforce it so selectively. But yeah, I'm kind of glad. Like I don't know. I've always found Chelsea irritating. I'm not sure why, and I'm just right now I'm thriving. This couldn't have happened to a better club.
Yeah, I mean everyone I know who supports Chelsea
I think especially
sucks,
because like Chelsea is one of those classic teams, a bit like Manchester United, which are just like not supported by people from there. Like Chelsea is such a weird, like, it's like anyone who's from London supports like Arsenal or Tottenham or like maybe Fulham or West Ham, like those kind of places, But then like, and then like people who aren't from London support Chelsea.
People who
like people who are
London,
from Manchester support Manchester City, and people who aren't from Manchester support Manchester United. So it is just like a funny, it's a funny team for it to happen to.
Yeah.
And real geezers support Millwall.
That's right. That is right. Yeah, so that's the TF take.
There's only one team left in the Premier League. It is Millwall. They just play.
They're not even in the Premier League now.
No.
They're just the only team
default
left, so
their way up. Yeah.
That's right.
That would make sense.
I love to go and see the only football game left: Millwall versus Dulwich Hamlet.
Now that'd be brutal.
Blood up to my knees in the stands.
The football would be a lot closer than the fight. I think it would be fair to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's very bizarre, and I think that like the whole like farce of it kind of mirrors the farce of like the oligarch sanctions, right? Which is like, all these people who like, you know, stole all of their money and had all these people killed to get their money in the 90s or whatever. That's totally fine. But now that Vladimir Putin's invaded Ukraine, we need to like sanction all of these people to stop Vladimir Putin, even though it won't stop Vladimir Putin because all of the oligarchs that are close to Putin don't live in fucking London because they're close to Putin, so they live in Moscow. That's kind of how it works.
Putin strikes me much more as someone who like prefers UFC. Surely
Kadyrov loves UFC. That's been the big plan of like Chechen state building is you build the sort of like Ahmed Kadyrov memorial mega mosque UFC gym. And it's in like one building co-located.
Yeah, the Islamic dojo. That's actually been the funniest thing of the whole war is when that entire Chechen column got blown up. Fucking Ramzan Kadyrov did an Instagram live where he was like, "Yeah, fuck, these Ukrainians are tougher than they look."
Lukashenko and Kadyrov have been easily, as was predictable, the funniest leaders on the Russian side.
100%.
Lukashenko accidentally standing in front of a map which had the whole invasion plan on it on a press conference.
And also included like invading Transnistria.
Yeah. Oh my god! But we're doing
that guy rules.
We're doing more than just sanctioning oligarchs, of course, because now, as a consequence of the US sanctions, whole companies are pulling out of Russia. And it's getting a bit intense. Just today, the latest, Goldman Sachs and Western Union both shutting off all their operations in Russia. Previous to that, we had PayPal, we had McDonald's, Coca-Cola, IKEA,
Adidas, terrifyingly for Russian culture.
War's over. War is over at that point.
Yeah.
That's unsustainable.
Burger King is staying in Russia.
Really? Burger King is not democratically accountable due to being a monarchy.
I really like
the human rights abuses in the Burger Kingdom are themselves something to answer for.
Yeah, but we need their oil. The thing that I really like is the Ukrainian foreign ministry just being absolutely vengeful about this. I guess the kind of people who work in foreign ministries need to be on like an oligarch task force or need to be like on Instagram. And what they're doing is they're just systematically bullying every company which has ever done business in Russia, which is all of them, and going, why do you support murdering children? Why aren't you leaving Russia immediately? And this works, like partly because of the sanctions, partly because of the public shaming, partly because it's like easier to cut their losses anyway. But
I loved the BBC or someone was interviewing people outside the flagship McDonald's on Tverskaya in Moscow, which I've been to many times. And they interviewed various people outside who were like, "Oh yeah, I've come to get a last burger." I saw loads of Russians posting on Instagram with like getting like a huge order of McDonald's before it closed down. And then one guy interviewed him outside and he was like, "I was just going in there to use the toilet." Just like that's the true service that McDonald's provides. That's what people will really miss.
Pizza Hut has closed in Russia, which means that everything that Gorbachev did was for nothing.
Well, and along with KFC, which is owned by the same company, and that's really going to piss him off because I tell you, like, for some reason, like KFC is the place where all the like Caucasian guys hang out in Moscow. Like all your Dagestanis and Chechens and stuff, they fucking love a KFC. So that's gonna hit the Kadyrov lobby hard.
Oof.
Yeah.
What's the kind of like what's the I mean, like I was thinking because Adidas like withdrew as well, right? Like they're no longer trading. And when I saw that, I was just like, very dark day for Slavs everywhere.
I know it's not going to be cheeky or breaky for a very long time.
So like, what is the thing that breaks camel? What is the thing that breaks camel's back? I'm not sure.
I don't know. Well, I think it's an interesting one because it's like kind of Putin and like certain people close to him, the kind of like ex-KGB guys, probably like revel in this like return to a kind of like ascetic, more
make
like
you
Soviet
strong.
way of life.
Yeah, you're gonna have to eat boiled fish all the time.
Most of like the oligarchs are gonna be like, where do I buy my Gucci phone case now?
Putin.
I have to go to Kazakhstan for this.
So you have to go to like the luxurious Kazakhstan to do it. Or like Putin's kind of like demand that he's got from Twitter about like the value of returning to tradition. He's waging a culture.
It's so fucking weird how all of these people, like whether it's like anti-trans bills in Florida, or whether it's Putin, like so many people in positions of influence who you would not expect to now sound like Telegram group chats of Nazis. Like, it was so fucking weird to hear Putin guys talking about cancel culture, for fuck's sake. It's like, guys, you are the culture. You have pretty much sole reign to do all of the culture in your country. Who is canceling you? KFC?
Yeah.
It's just very funny the extent to which, like, this is so... And I think this is one of the reasons why, like, the people trying to frame this from the perspective of it being, like, NATO aggression or whatever are so funny, because it's just, like, the whole thing is so completely insane. Like, most of the people in the Kremlin itself are, like, running cover for it because they're just like, what the fuck is going on? That, like, that's what, like, we've finally, like, crossed the Rubicon. And we're now in, like, the realm of magical thinking of Russian foreign policy, where it's become, like, it's not a war. It's a special military operation to denazify the Ukraine. Don't ask me what that means.
Did you see that they're now trying to blame Ukraine for COVID? On the basis that supposedly, and I cannot stress enough the extent to which this is all bullshit, that there's a NATO biological weapons facility in Kharkiv which was experimenting on bats and released the novel coronavirus, which I guess then made its way to Wuhan undetected.
Yeah, they were trying to build the Batman.
Yeah, and so therefore, now that Ukraine has infected the world with COVID, Russia is forced to go in and de-COVIDify it.
That's right. Yeah, they had Robert Pattinson chained up in a lab in Kharkiv, and they were having him bitten over and over again by Batman.
that is how you become the Batman. Yeah.
And Putin is the Riddler. He's going to expose the corruption.
One of my favorite types of posts were like people who were like lamented, who were like, you know, oh, it sucks that like Putin's waged this war now because like people won't get to see the Batman.
Imagine if you were a Russian conscript and your Elden Ring download just finishes, and then your sergeant is like, "Okay, listen, get in the fucking truck." You would be annoyed.
You'd be furious. Although you'd be glad that you'd got it downloaded before the sanctions.
Ah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, you buy I don't know, Gran Turismo or something, and it's like it's 99% installed, and then your phone goes off with a notification that Sony is now complying with all of the sanctions. And you're just like, well, better overthrow my government.
Yeah.
I've got to take my PlayStation to Kazakhstan to finish this download.
They're not even selling PlayStations or like Nintendo Switches in Russia anymore, which is insane.
Connecting to local Wi-Fi somewhere in Ukraine to finish it.
But like every kind of like modern luxury, every little treat, everything that capital like promises you is very contingent, is something that I think we can learn from this. Because okay, admittedly, it's a very good reason to like turf somebody out of the club, but now we've seen what happens when that happens, and it's a thing that's very sort of readily done, is you can just fucking turn off the big treats button.
Yeah, and that is the scariest thing of all.
It's the scariest thing of all. That's the most frightening thing.
Except, and I was saying this on 10K this week, that like Russia is just kind of like a spiv country, and they will like I remember like when the sanctions came in 2014, when I was first living there, like the extent to which like the black market back channels like sprung into action so quickly, like, oh, okay, we're no longer importing European food. Like suddenly all of these like European cheeses and stuff were being exported to fucking Belarus, relabeled as Belarusian products and then exported to Russia. So I mean, like, expect to see in the coming weeks like fucking iPhones and MacBooks and Nike trainers and whatever flooding into Kazakhstan well beyond the Kazakhstan like market demands, and then being somehow then shuffled on into Russia.
And it's not even back channels anymore, because they legalized software piracy the day the sanctions came in, which is just incredible.
Yeah, you'll have to see that. You got to hand it to them for that one.
I'm looking forward to Kazakhstan sort of being like suddenly being like the center of all kind of like drip culture.
Yeah, you actually have to. They've renamed the country instead of Russian Federation. It's now Razor 1911 Russia.
Yeah, that's
plays a little chip tune every time you go in the border.
That's right.
And this is what the people wanted.
Absolutely.
This is the future that liberals want. They want there to be a huge queue for the Supreme store in Almaty.
They do. They do, and they want to like impress. They want to impress their friends at the Tour de Moon with their Kazakhstani.
That's right.
Kazakhstani.
That was the thing in the late Soviet Union. Food just came out in drops. That's what people don't understand.
My loot box full of Huel. My loot box full of bootleg Huel.
Your loot box full of Grechka. Right. Well, I guess that about tears it for an episode of Trashfuture. Yeah, reminder that if you want to donate to that strike fund for the Just Eat guys, there'll be a link in the description. And yeah, I'm in Berlin at the end of the month. It's going to be, I'm doing a show in Russian, controversial, on Saturday the 26th.
Do you really think that's appropriate at a time like this?
Yeah, I'm going to get cancelled. And I'm doing a show in English on Sunday the 27th.
Do you really think it's appropriate at a time like this, you fucking NATO shill?
Yeah, I'm getting cancelled by both sides, that's for sure. Yeah, there might be ticket links for those by the time this is out or not, but just keep an eye out if you're in Berlin for that.
Cool.
All right. Catch you later.
Bye.